few months back, when Elon Musk began his hostile takeover of Twitter, many observers, myself included, found it somewhat baffling that the left was losing its collective mind over the proposed acquisition. After all, the lion's share of social media platforms are owned by left-leaning Silicon Valley tech giants. Why should they be so concerned that a single major platform would be veering right of center? Well, last week we received an answer to that query. That's when Elon Musk and journalist Matt Taibbi released the first batch of emails detailing collusion between the Biden campaign and Twitter under its previous regime. Indeed, it was revealed that former Twitter executive Vijaya Gadde, who headed the company's legal, policy, and trust department, played a key role in the story suppression, and that Twitter worked alongside the Biden campaign to censor content on the platform. That is a bombshell. For this is not a conspiracy theory, folks. Rather, this is a bona fide conspiracy, period. And now this just in, Wikipedia is voting on the deletion of a page covering this topic because its editors have deemed it to be a nothing burger, with many claiming that the story isn't notable because mainstream media outlets did not provide it with significant coverage. Wow, as they say in the news business, talk about burying the lead. And with more on the ongoing story of Twitter is Rebel News reporter Miles Cheong. Welcome to the Ezra Levant Show, Ian.
Hey, happy to be on here.
Fantastic. Ian, so much to digest here, but first of all, what were your thoughts about former Twitter executives colluding with the Biden campaign to bury that Hunter Biden laptop scandal in the first place?
Well, it doesn't come to me as a surprise, given the predilection of these executives and the views that they hold. I mean, they all live in San Francisco, and I think Elon Musk even said it best, that San Francisco is basically exporting its culture to the world, right? Its narratives are being exported right now, whether it's social, like how they view society, how they view gender, for instance, and of course it's politics as well. And if anything, they would want to protect their golden goose, which is of course Joe Biden. So to have a story that is humiliating to him, possibly damaging his chances at the election, is something they would want to suppress, and that is exactly what they did.
And it's fascinating, Ian, isn't it? Because we go back to when that happened. Twitter actually deleted or deplatformed the Twitter account of the New York Post, no less, because they had the scoop on this story. Meanwhile, they were still catering to accounts held by the Taliban, held by the mullahs in Iran. Ian, this is astonishing that a company based in the land of the First Amendment would go on such a journalistic jihad in the first place.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of conservatives in the US have argued that Twitters and Facebooks and all these other platforms should lose their Section 230 rights because they're acting as a publisher. They're behaving like editors instead of being neutral social media platforms. And I'm inclined to agree. Now, however, I would, given that Elon Musk has taken over, maybe Section 230 is good after all. I think that we should be looking at all these other platforms, Meta and TikTok and YouTube, of course, which have similarly suppressed free speech and as well as the truth, just in general.
And it's so perversely ironic, isn't it, Ian, when we go back to when Elon Musk first set his sights on Twitter and people were freaking out and people at Twitter were freaking out. But to me, I talk about being the author of your own misfortune. In other words, if Twitter hadn't been so blatant in its censorship, if they hadn't been so obvious in deplatforming right-of-center views, this never would have aroused the curiosity of Elon Musk in the first place. What say you, my friend?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, you don't have to be a genius, looking at Twitter and not realizing that the suppression only goes one way. They talk about trust and safety, and yet the only people affected by their decisions, their moderating decisions, are people on the right or people on the center. Whereas Antifa, for instance, which is a far left militant organization, has been allowed to organize violent actions on Twitter itself and do so with impunity.
Again, it is just fascinating to me. And it brings us to your most recent story on the Rebel News site, Ian, which is about Wikipedia having a non-trivial left-wing bias. Those are the words from Elon Musk himself. What do you make of this business of Wikipedia thinking that this whole Hunter Biden laptop story is a nothing burger when I would argue it's the precise opposite?
Well, it's working side by side with the media. This is not the first time that we've seen a kind of unspoken collusion between Wikipedia editors and their friends in the media, because I don't think they openly talk about this, but they certainly serve the same agenda, and that is what we're seeing right now. They want to suppress this story as a so-called nothing burger because it damages their narrative. So they will do anything in their power to ensure that the story doesn't gain any traction or gain any legs, and they will claim that because the media is not covering it, therefore it's not a story, and the media in turn can say the same thing. They'll say, well, there's no Wikipedia page on it, so therefore it is not a notable story worth covering. And they've done so numerous times. They did the same thing with the lab leak theory a couple of years ago when that was suppressed, that was censored. And so hopefully Elon Musk comes out with his next batch of Twitter files that will include the suppression of that story. I'm inclined to, I would love to see that, to see a bunch of people exposed, like maybe in the government or maybe with pharmaceutical companies. Who knows?
And maybe even law enforcement agencies, Ian, from what we're hearing about the FBI's role in this, the suppressing of the Hunter Biden story.
That's an excerpt from my show every night. It's called The Ezra Levant Show. That's me, Ezra Levant. You can see the whole thing behind our paywall. Oh, there's a lot of goodies behind there. I do a show every weeknight. My friends Sheila Gunn Reid and David Menzies and Nat and Kat have their shows too. You get a ton of content for just $8 a month. There's so much in there you won't find anywhere else. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.